So what is it about us? This constant draw towards figures who are, more than human.
Right.
Why do we seem to need that kind of savior, someone almost godlike, like Superman, instead of, say, someone like Batman, who's still exceptional, but fundamentally human?
It's a really core question, isn't it? It digs deep into our psychology, how we build meaning in our societies, why this recurring figure, the powerful protector.
Yeah, and why the lean towards the superhuman?
Well, that's what we want to unpack today. We'll look at Superman, Batman, but also characters like Birdman, Nite Owl.
Through different lenses, right? Art, film, philosophy.
Exactly. To try and figure out what this need for a champion really tells us about ourselves.
Okay, so let's put aside the pure fandom aspect for a moment. We're looking deeper. What do these icons reveal about our collective hopes, our anxieties? Let's start with the big one. Superman, the ultimate more than human guy.
Okay, Superman. So 1938, Action Comics #1. It wasn't just launching a character. You could argue it birthed the whole superhero genre as we know it.
And the art itself was part of that, wasn't it? Bold lines, those primary colors.
Yeah.
Very declarative.
Absolutely. And tracking his visual evolution is fascinating because it mirrors our own changing ideas about heroism.
You really see it. The Golden Age stuff, pretty simple, straightforward heroism.
Right.
Then the Silver Age, you get more detail, artists like Kurt Swan trying for a bit more, I guess, realism.
A bit more grounded, relatively speaking. And then the modern age Byrne, Jim Lee, these super dynamic, sometimes almost hyper-real poses.
It's like our visual language for power just kept getting more complex.
Exactly. And even the symbol, the S.
Yeah, that famous shield.
It starts as just, an S. But then it becomes this Kryptonian symbol for hope, loaded with meaning.
So even the design changes reflect what we wanted from him at the time.
I think so.
Yeah.
The costume tweaks, too. Sometimes sleeker, more modern, other times emphasizing the alien aspect or trying to make him seem more relatable. Each change is sort of a cultural marker.
And those early movie serials back in the 40s, even on a tight budget, they must have been huge for getting him out there.
Oh, definitely. They cemented his image for a huge audience beyond the comics. And then George Reeves in the 50s TV show.
Right, Adventures of Superman.
Yeah, they faced real hurdles showing his powers with the tech back then. Had to get creative.
But you feel like the game really changed in '78. Superman, the movie.
Oh, completely. You'll believe a man can fly.
And they kind of delivered. For the time, anyway.
The effects were groundbreaking, sure, but Christopher Reeve, that performance was key.
He nailed both sides, didn't he? The powerhouse and the sort of gentle Clark Kent.
Perfectly. The joy in that first flight scene, but also those quieter moments. He just was Superman for so many people, defined him.
Then fast forward to, say, 2013. Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. Totally different vibe.
Very different. Darker, more muted visually, that visceral, heavy action.
And Cable's portrayal feels much more focused on the burden of it all, right? The ambiguity, the identity struggle.
Yeah, Snyder really leaned into that.
Yeah.
It's a reflection maybe of our own times, more complex, more ambiguous. We want even our gods to wrestle with things.
And the wider DC movie universe has kept exploring those angles.
Placing him within that larger context of flawed heroes and complex threats.
We shouldn't forget animation either. Those Fleischer cartoons in the 40s. Stunning stuff.
Just beautiful. Technically brilliant for their day, really captured the motion and power.
And then the 90s animated series, that felt like a really mature take.
It absolutely was. Great storytelling, respected the source, but felt modern. And the newer animated movies keep finding fresh ways to look at them.
So, okay, moving beyond the visuals and the adaptations.
Yeah.
What's the deeper philosophical pull? Why this archetype, this being so far beyond us?
Well, fundamentally, he embodies hope. Justice. The American way, though that phrase itself has evolved, hasn't it?
Sure.
He's meant to be this moral beacon. But his immense power, that creates an inherent philosophical tension, doesn't it?
You mean the potential for control if one person has that much power?
Exactly. How do you protect humanity without limiting its freedom, its own agency? It's a fine line.
And some stories have really pushed on that.
Oh, yeah. Things like, for the man who has everything, exploring what he truly desires, or whatever happened to the man of tomorrow, looking at his limits and ending. They force us to confront those ethical tightropes. Does having such a perfect protector make us complacent?
It makes you think about, say, Eastern philosophical ideas, too. The focus there is often more on inner potential, right? Self-reliance, not waiting for an external savior.
That's a really insightful point. Many Eastern traditions emphasize cultivating what's already within. Superman's power is external, his alien heritage. It highlights a different cultural view on achieving betterment or strength. Is it found outside or unlocked from inside?
And his dual identity, Clark Kent, the human, versus Superman, the alien, that's more than just clock mechanics.
Oh, much more. It taps into themes of immigration, assimilation, feeling like an outsider trying to belong.
Which feels very relevant today.
Definitely. But philosophically, it asks, what does it mean to be human? Is it biology? Or is it the choices you make, the values you hold? He chooses a human identity, in a way.
But still, that image, Superman flying in, it's pure hope, isn't it? Especially in dark times. The whole Death and Return arc showed how much that symbol mattered.
His resilience is central, that optimism. It's a powerful counter to cynicism. But maybe, circling back, maybe that deep need for him specifically shows our own feeling of limitation, a desire for someone, something, to fix things we feel powerless against.
Like we project our best intentions and maybe our deepest anxieties onto him. Okay, let's pivot. Let's talk about the flip side, in a way. Batman.
Right. If Superman is the godlike alien, Batman is. Well, he's trauma personified and weaponized, born from human tragedy, not alien sunlight.
And he operates completely outside the law, vigilantism. That immediately raises ethical flags.
Huge flags. Where's the line between justice and revenge for him? It's intentionally blurry. Unlike Superman's clear moral code, Batman lives in the gray areas. Do the ends justify his means?
And it all stems from that single event, witnessing his parents' murder. That trauma is Batman, essentially.
It's the engine. It creates that stark duality, the public Bruce Wayne persona, the hidden, terrifying Batman, and his main tool, fear.
He uses the criminal underworld's fear against them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which ties into philosophical ideas about power and control. He's turning his own past vulnerability into a weapon.
Which leads to some pretty dark places existentially.
Yeah.
Confronting human weakness, his own inner demons, this relentless, maybe obsessive quest.
Definitely obsessive. And politically, his very existence challenges the state's authority, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He's saying the system failed, so he has to step in.
Plus, he's a billionaire industrialist fighting street crime. There are class dynamics baked in there, too.
Oh, absolutely. Gotham's inequality is often part of the backdrop to his crusade.
So these two poles, Superman, the shining ideal from above, and Batman, the darkness rising from human pain. What does having both tell us?
Maybe it shows the range of what we grapple with. We need the aspiration, the hope Superman represents, but we also recognize the darkness, the struggle, the resilience born from hardship that Batman embodies. One's the dream, the other's the fight.
Okay, interesting comparison. Now let's bring in some other figures mentioned in our outline. Birdman. Not exactly a superhero in the traditional sense.
No, not at all. Birdman, the film, is about Regan Thompson, an actor famous for playing a superhero who's now, well, washed up.
Desperate for relevance, right? Trying to mount this serious Broadway play.
Exactly. So the core conflict isn't fighting villains, it's fighting obscurity. Yeah. It's about fame, ego, the terror of being forgotten.
And the film skewers the whole idea of art versus commercialism, doesn't it? His quest for authenticity feels almost farcical at times.
It really exposes the hypocrisy. What's real art? What's just selling out? And Regan himself seems caught between the reality of the situation and the illusion of his past Birdman persona.
Those scenes where you're not sure if he's hallucinating the powers.
Right. It blurs that line constantly. Does he prefer the illusion? Is the superhero identity a kind of escape or a burden he can't shake?
So it's really an existential crisis playing out. A search for meaning when your peak seems long past.
Precisely. The superhero persona becomes a metaphor for his internal battles, his inflated ego, his insecurities.
And politically, you could read it as a commentary on celebrity culture, the pressures of staying relevant.
Yeah, the tension between artistic integrity, if he ever had it, and just wanting that mass validation against a critique of how society values or devalues performance.
You even see like colonial nuances, the way cultural icons are maybe exploited or consumed, or maybe an internal colonization by fame itself.
That's a fascinating angle, the way his past identity sort of colonizes his present, preventing him from moving on, or how the industry demands conformity. It's rich territory.
Okay, another complex figure, Nite Owl from Watchmen, Dan Dreiberg.
Nite Owl too, yeah. He represents something else entirely, more like the failure of heroism. Disillusionment.
Definitely a sense of nostalgia for a past that maybe wasn't as great as he remembers.
He's yearning for that golden age of crime fighting. But Watchmen is all about deconstructing that myth. His reliance on gadgets, his sort of middle-aged spread. He feels inadequate.
Struggling in a world that's moved past costume heroes, or maybe sees them differently.
And the world of Watchmen is incredibly bleak, cynical. The heroes aren't clear-cut good guys. They're deeply flawed, often complicit in messed up systems, Nite Owl included.
But there's also something relatable about him, isn't there? The ordinary guy trying to do good, maybe.
Yeah, he's probably the most human, the most grounded of the main Watchmen cast. He represents the potential, maybe the limitations, of everyday heroism in a corrupt world.
But he faces those intense ethical dilemmas, too. The moral ambiguity is everywhere in Watchmen.
Absolutely. It forces Nite Owl and the reader into uncomfortable positions. There are no easy answers. The whole book is a critique of the simplistic morality often found in superhero comics.
So Nite Owl embodies that deconstruction.
Perfectly. And the overall philosophy is much more pessimistic than, say, Superman's idealism. It questions power, responsibility, the very nature of doing good.
How does he grapple with that power politically? He inherited the mantle, the tech.
Right, inheriting power from the previous Nite Owl. There's a commentary there about legacy, maybe even hierarchy, and his actions, like the others, often have morally dubious justifications, which could be read as a critique of how power, even supposedly benevolent power, operates, potentially echoing colonial justifications for control.
He lacks superpowers, too, highlighting those human limitations again.
Exactly. It underscores the vulnerability and the difficult choices facing someone trying to make a difference without godlike abilities in a world falling apart.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. Superman, the perhaps corrosive ideal. Batman, the trauma-fueled vigilante. Birdman wrestling with relevance. And Nite Owl facing disillusionment.
Yeah, quite the spectrum. From the godlike to the deeply, painfully human to the psychologically fractured actor and the retired hero.
What's the big takeaway, then? What do all these figures in their different ways tell us?
I think they force us to look at ourselves. They reflect our own anxieties, our compromises, our ideas about power, trauma, responsibility. They hold up a mirror to society's complexities.
Seeing them through all these lenses, art, film, philosophy, politics, even colonialism, it adds layers, doesn't it?
It really does. It moves beyond just story analysis into understanding the cultural work these figures do.
So here's the final thought to leave people with. This ongoing fascination we have, this need for these powerful, often deeply flawed figures. Is it just escapism? Or does it point to something more fundamental about us? A desire for something beyond ourselves, maybe?
Or perhaps it's a reflection of our own contradictions.
Yeah.
Our capacity for great good and great darkness, our yearning for meaning in a complex world, and thinking ahead.
Yeah.
You know, with AI becoming so sophisticated, could machines become our next superheroes? What would that reveal about our evolving needs? Will our saviors be code?
Algorithms instead of capes. Definitely something to chew on.